Hey everyone, welcome back to Around the Bird Path. This is episode 16. As always, I'm your host, Dan Nerdall, and coming to you for the Tuesday midweek reaction. The game just ended less than an hour ago. Wanted to hop on and get this recorded and get the live kind of the quick reaction, the hot takes out there after the game. Solo episode this week. Last week I had Stephen Whitaker on from birdsup.com and definitely plan on getting guests frequently for this week, just with the logistics of it being the afternoon start time in the middle of the week and whatnot. It was a little difficult getting some different logistics to line up with a guest, but going to have just kind of a reaction that's a little more just kind of like, wow. I mean, if you had the opportunity to watch the game or following on Twitter or seeing some live tweets, kind of a crazy one. Started off a little slow, and then it looked like it was going to get out of hand again, and then, like we've seen already a few times this season, here comes UTSA storming back, and an interesting way of how they started that comeback, and then another close, just nail biter, holding on the last inning, and UTSA finally finds themselves on. I mean, they've had some close wins this season. This was their fourth win. Their other win, close win. Their third win out of their four wins so far, where by one run, and just an exciting game, and nice to see them pull out one of these ones, because the other ones that were close, I mean, SFA was 7-6 against UTA. It was 2-1, but they had the other ones that were kind of lopsided, or just big run games by both teams, and they just found themselves on the wrong side of that. So, yeah, I mean, they pulled it out, and an exciting game. The announcers, and I mean, kudos to the Houston broadcast team. I mean, top notch broadcast, very well informed, and very knowledgeable about the game. And outside of when things were going Houston's way, and it's harder to listen to the home or the visiting team, or the opposing team rather, talk about it. Very knowledgeable, very professional. So that was nice to hear. But they mentioned at one point, the cardiac Cougars. I believe it was the color commentator played for Houston. He said, we were the cardiac Cougars. Obviously, they don't know about the cardiac Roadrunners with football and then baseball at times last season and even this season. So, yeah, back and forth game in some ways, and UTSA found themselves on the right side of it. Just a couple quick stats in terms of box score for the Roadrunners, and then we'll kind of get to the more talk about it and just take a deep breath and break it down. But 8 runs on 8 hits. They left 4 runners on base. Houston had 7 runs on 7 hits with 4 lefts on base. The difference was Houston made 3 errors in the field, and UTSA made none. Now, UTSA they had 2 balks called. One I thought was pretty questionable. The first one on Connor Miles, the one on Ryan Ward. It looked a little more maybe like the right call, but Ryan was definitely confused. He didn't know what it was called for, and they both had big implications at the time, and just kind of helped Houston out even more. So definitely Bach calls that Houston benefited in more than one way, and we'll definitely talk about that more. But 4 home runs for UTSA. The highlight of that was the top of the 6th, when they had just given up a 3-run inning to go down by 5 runs, and it was a leadoff. It was back-to-back-to-back leadoff home runs to start the inning to make it a game again and get it back to 7-5. and just really kind of woke things up. And they both times UTSA gave up kind of big runs, or two of the three times rather. They responded. The bottom of the second inning, it looked like Ryan Beard was going to get out of it, and he was looking solid. It was looking like the best outing he's had so far this season. Still not a terrible outing. He's gonna want that home run ball back, but it definitely seemed like the ball was flying tonight with all of the home runs, and looked like he was going to get out of it. Gave up the 2-run home run. UTSA came right back the next inning. Caleb Hill hit a 2-run home run, benefited from Aiden Bauman being on first base after the throwing error. And then bottom of the third, Houston gets 2 more runs. So now it's 4-2 again. And then bottom of the fifth, they got 3 more runs. And then obviously UTSA in the 6th and 7th. So great job by UTSA to battle back and keep fighting. And Tuesday games are so weird on both sides for both teams. And we saw what happened last week against Tarleton. They fell behind early and stormed back, and then lost the heartbreak in the bottom of the ninth with the walk-off grand slam when the game was tied. And this time, they're kind of the ones that are, they're storming back again, and then they hold on to it. But 7 of UTSA's 8 hits were extra base hits. They had 2 doubles. The double by Parmer, I thought it could maybe been ruled an error, but they gave him a hit. It's tough play in the wind, and the left fielder had to run a ways for it. So that might have been why they ruled that a hit. But 2 doubles, and then the triple by Matt King, and then the 4 home runs, 2 by Caleb Hill, 1 by Matt King, and 1 by Alexander Olivo. So Matt King and Olivo both get their first home runs of the season. Caleb Hill is now sitting at 4, and with sitting at 4, his second multi home run game of the season. He also walked once, had a single, so reached base 4 out of 5 times, and was responsible for 4 RBIs, 4 of the 7 RBIs. So great game by Caleb. He had definitely some good moments in the Sugar Land Classic, but had some tougher at bats and had a hard time, getting kind of those multiple hits. And then also there's a few times where they had him try to lay down a bunt to reach and get a runner on. But great game by Caleb Hill, great game by Matt King, 2 hits, 2 RBIs, and then of course the big home run by Alexander Olivo. So it was, I think, through the first 5 innings, UTSA only had 1 hit. It was Caleb's home run, and then the 6th and 7th they put up 2 3 spots and scored 6 unanswered to hold on to the win. From the pitching side, it wasn't terrible. I know 7 earned runs isn't ideal, especially when as a team, just for the most part this season haven't been hitting great, and the hitting hasn't quite been there. Obviously, it showed up today in a big way this afternoon. But, 4 walks by the pitching staff. Obviously, the 2 walks by Ryan Beard, and he gave up the big home run. It went walk, home run, walk, and he got out of it with not too much damage. And then Connor Miles, came out to start the third, and then Ryan Beard and Connor Miles both hit a batter as well. So, the four walks and then the 2 hit by pitch. And for Connor Miles, it seemed like, when the balk got called, it definitely seemed like that affected him. After that, he didn't seem as comfortable, and it'd be interesting to kind of get some perspective from, from Connor or from Coach Hallmark or Coach Butler if the ump's sending anything to them after the fact or in the moment. But it's hard, like when you've got your routine, and obviously pitchers are very methodical and very standard in doing the same motion, and part of their routine, part of their motion has to be the same for that exact reason. But then when the umpire decides that you're doing something that is not allowed, and now you're focused on that, and especially if you don't think that you did have the extra movement or the early movement or whatever it be, now that's definitely in the back of your mind. And so have to think that affected him because, just went a third of an inning, gave up one hit, 2 runs, the walk, had one of the wild pitches. Ward had the other one, and only faced 4 batters. And, for the most part, he's looked pretty solid to start the year. He's had a few outings now, and so I have to think that affected him and kind of rattled him a little bit, and understandably so. If you're moving along, and especially if it hadn't been called, and then all of a sudden it gets called kind of out of nowhere, that can definitely play a factor. So, Ryan Ward gets called for the other one. That one scores a run. He came in with, I believe, with 1 out recorded, but the bases were loaded, and it looked like he was going to maybe get out of it with giving up, no runs. They scored the first run of the third inning on the fielder's choice, and a play that, if Ty's playing a little different, maybe if he's playing just a few steps further back, maybe he can field that and come home, and they can do the 5-2-3 double play. But he was playing a little shallow. It looked like kind of ate him up. And, I mean, he scooped it up really nice and kept it in front of him. And not enough time to come home, unfortunately. So he went over to first base to record the out. And then the next batter, the balk gets called, and the runner from third scores. So that's their second run to put him back up by 2. And similar thing, just hard to focus in after that balk gets called. But, Ward, pretty good outing for the most part. 1.2 innings pitched, just 1 hit, 3 strikeouts, no walks, just 1 wild pitch and the balk. And UTSA as a whole, I mean, pitching wise, they struck out 11. So, Beard had 2, Ryan Ward had 3, Drake Smith had 4, and Ruger Riojas coming in for the uncharacteristic 3-inning save. He had 2 strikeouts as well. Definitely want to give a shout out to Drake Smith. Drake got the win, even though Ruger came in the 7th when UTSA took the lead. Drake Smith was still the pitcher of record, so he earns the win, his first of the season, and just 1 hit, no walks, 4 strikeouts, as I mentioned, 5 batters faced. In the 6th inning, he struck out the side, which, I mean, talk about like an inning to have. You come in to finish off the 5th, and then you come in the 6th, and your team just gets 3 runs to get it within 2, and you strike out the side in the bottom of the 6th. And that's not something UTSA has always, like, when they've, like, this season to start, like when they've gotten really good innings out of their pitcher, or their pitcher gets them out of a jam, or the defense, they get a little help from the defense. So far up to this point this season, in a lot of ways, at different points, they didn't really produce much on the offensive side of things. So nice to see them put together a couple bigger innings like that with the 2-3 spots, and nice to see Drake Smith have a good outing like that. And it probably seems funny to or maybe like a stretch to talk about the hitting when they score 8 runs against a good Houston team, just Houston's second loss of the season, and they hit 4 home runs. So obviously the bats came alive. Still would like to see the hitting kind of wake up a little sooner. And I mean, the first couple guys that Houston threw out there were studs on the mound. But, just one hit through 5 innings, and sometimes that's going to happen. But would like to see the hitting continue to pick up, and maybe this is the turnaround that they needed, and maybe after this it's going to really start to pick up some speed. Baseball is an interesting game, and it's a funny game where you can come out and have a game like this, and where you hit 4 home runs, and then the next game the hits are staying in, or it's a little quieter and whatnot. So, but yeah, definitely want to see the hitting continue to improve and just continue to help out the pitching, because when it's the other thing about baseball is, like, throughout the course of the game, you kind of have an idea of like how you feel about the game with how it's going, and then all of a sudden, like, the sixth inning comes along and things shift, and now the talking points are kind of completely different in some ways. But when the hitting as a whole coming into this game has struggled the way it has for UTSA, opposing runs and runs by the other team just almost, I feel like, seem like every run they scored, there was really scoring 2 runs or 3 runs, because when the bats just aren't working, it's like, oh man, like, we just tied it, and the very next opportunity for Houston, they took a 2-run lead, and then we have two quiet innings ourselves, and then they come out and put a 3 spot up, and it's like, now we're down by 5 again, and once again we're clawing back. But I mean, if there's one thing that this team has showed early, just through 9 games, it's they're going to fight, and they're going to battle, and they can score quick at times, and they can put runs on the board, and definitely not ones to give up on. And the one thing I will say about UTSA is, I mean, the first inning, it was looking like it was going to be a very good top of the first for them. Caleb Hill got down 0-2, and then drew a walk after getting down 0-2, and Matt King, I thought, Matt King got out, and then Olivo drew a walk. That's right. And then, so it's like, okay, so they've got first and second, they've got just one out. Mason Lytle is coming up to the plate, and I may or may not have been driving at this point, so I didn't see the play. I had it playing, and I think I had just gotten to HEB to pick up groceries, but just a real hard, seems like a line drive right to the third baseman, and going on contact, and then already kind of being away on a lead from the bag, just a quick enough play where Caleb couldn't get back. Didn't really seem like it was a base running error. Just seemed like, you're already kind of taking a lead. You're already starting to get a jump, especially with a ground ball. You want to try to break up any type of double play possibility, and just right to the third baseman. It's just one of those baseball players where sometimes you hit the ball 110 miles an hour and it goes right to the guy, and sometimes you hit the ball 35 miles an hour and it drops him for a hit. But they showed patience at the plate right away, and I think that's definitely a takeaway too. Was, I don't know, that pitcher, what his pitch count is per se, like what his peak is, but getting him to throw 15, 16, 17 pitches in the first inning probably definitely helped in getting to the bullpen early, and is not going to show up on the box score in terms of runs. You got to deep dive a little bit to find the walks, because that's not going to show up just on the basic box score, but definitely something that definitely makes a difference and plays a factor later in the game. So even though no runs came from it and just an unfortunate bounce, something that proved to be helpful. I was hoping that the D1 baseball, I've mentioned this before, they do win probability charts in partnership with 643 Charts, and they always have those available on their website to their subscribers. You can go to the score page, and after the game is finished, they have that up, and definitely wanted to look and see what, like, just how crazy the score probability chart was today. Unfortunately, it's not available yet. So what I'll do is when I record for the Patreon the weekend preview for Grand Canyon, I'll definitely mention or touch on that win probability chart and refer back to that and just point out, because I've got to imagine it's going to look like, a monitor reading, the way those squiggly lines are going to be going up and down. The other thing, getting back to the hitting one more time, looking at today's game, the bottom four batters just one hit from the 6 through 9 spot, and no walks. 3 strikeouts by Diego Diaz. And he's a true freshman. I'm not sure what the plan was for him this season. If it was a, hey, we're gonna keep you on the shelf, or hey, we're gonna definitely get you some looks at this point. UTSA is still a little banged up with Isaiah out. Ty Odom wasn't playing again today. He's an outfielder, but causes things to shift around, and then also just trying to get guys looks. So this was only Diego's second game as a Roadrunner, and still looking for that first hit. Had some good cuts up there. Had a couple times where, it looked like he might drop in, or definitely some potential at the plate. Really good defense. Made some good plays today. Made some good plays in his start in the Sugarland Classic, but definitely want to see more production from the bottom half of the lineup, and through 15 at bats from those 4 spots, just 1 hit, and that's hard, because when you're coming up to the bottom half of the lineup and not getting any production, or very, very little production from the bottom half of the lineup, that can definitely be tough in terms of keeping momentum going. Brock Palmer had his double. That would have been some really nice insurance, and wasn't able to get anything from that. So that's the last piece for the hitting. And then, touching real quick again on the pitching, just the 2 wild pitches today. Unfortunately, they came at kind of times when it hurt UTSA in terms of advancing runners and runners being in scoring position. And there were some wild pitches and pass balls over the weekend, something that you definitely want to see get cleaned up. Mentioned already, the opposing team scoring runs when you're just having a harder time at the plate. And anytime you kind of are giving the opposing team those runs like that, and not, like, they're not really earning it on their end, you're kind of just helping them out. That can really hurt, and it just makes that deficit sting a little more. And so, all 4 catchers this year are new, in terms of new to UTSA, and you've got some pitchers that are new. You've got some veteran pitchers. So just getting everyone on the same page. And I mean, that's really, I think, what, part of it, knowing how guys throw and what their pitches are going to do, and if they're throwing a certain pitch to a certain part of the plate, what that has the potential of. But also, too, I mean, just cleaning up the defense behind the plate a little bit, and helping out so that if the pitcher is trying to throw something nasty, that he doesn't have to worry about it. If it hops a little bit, it's going to skip away, and then that's going to advance the runner and everything. It's still early. I know that the start they got off to is not up to what we've been used to the past couple of seasons, and I certainly, coming out of the fall and into the spring, had, high expectations, and I don't see why we can't still feel that way. This is an up and down game, and there's still a lot of new faces and a lot of guys getting used to playing with each other, and guys are having to shuffle around a little bit, whatnot. But and some things that still have to be worked on. Winning this game it's not a good, like, we're like, it was needed, it was important for a lot of different reasons, but still have a lot to work on both on the mound and at the plate. And it's going to be a long season. You got a tough team coming in this weekend with Grand Canyon, and then you get the rematch against Tarleton next Tuesday. You get Northwestern coming down from up north. They're an improved team. You got the game against Texas State, the first of two Tuesday games against Texas State, and then you've got ECU coming to town for conference play, and that's when really got to hit the ground running and get off to a good start. And a long ways to go, or a little ways to go before that, and a lot more content and a lot more breakdowns and discussions, and going to try to hopefully do some type of conference check-in, the same thing we did last year, just seeing where all the teams are at through conference play and how to kind of read between the lines on some teams' records, because some teams at the top might have a few more losses than maybe expected, but maybe a really, really tough strength of schedule and tough schedule, and other teams maybe just haven't, maybe similar to UTSA, haven't really got off to the start that we thought they would. So we're going to break all that down, going to bring all that content to all of you. But for now, enjoy the win. Another Tuesday win against Houston. Last year's was a little more comfortable, a little easier to breathe and take in, but an exciting game this afternoon. And, they're in the Big 12 now, so nice power win. And, the Pac-12 is still functioning this year, so a nice Power 5 win for the Roadrunners, and a nice midweek game, especially after last week's. So we'll wrap it at that. Before we go, want to, as always, thank you as the listeners, thank our Patreon supporters, and give a special shout out to our board of trustees, Digiteek, John Outwell, Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Meet Me Apparel, Brandon Grill and the Grill Realty Group, Andy Elizalde and Proficient in Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and SYCR LLC, Ryan Squires, Waterman Construction, Javon Townsend, VP of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, UTSA Annually Giving, and Artisan Vapor and CBD, who for 2 more days for the month of February, sponsoring all of our podcasts in the month of February, but also appreciate them being a Board of Trustees member. And, of course, our big money donors, Ben Tovar, the Bunch family, Zach Esper-Quetta and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavidez, Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Brandon Padron, John Nally, and Home Field Apparel, where you can use the discount code UTSA Wants Home Field to get 15% off your first purchase or 10% off for returning customers. That supports us at Alamo Audible and our partnership with during the football season with Dave Campbell's Texas Republic of Football. And, I've recently, and I found this podcast a few times, and I'm starting to listen to it a little more because I just need more baseball podcasts in my routine. But definitely check out if you're looking for another college baseball centered podcast. 11.7, the guys over there do a good job. Ben Upton is kind of the main ringleader for that, but they've been talking about home field nonstop and has me ready for the day, hopefully soon, when UTSA will have home field and we can go on and use that code and get some quality, good-looking vintage and just good UTSA apparel. So I'm at 30 minutes. I want to try to keep these a little shorter throughout the season. If you're still listening, kudos to you and thank you so much. But I'll see you, those of you on Patreon, for this weekend's series preview against Grand Canyon. And if you're in the San Antonio area, come on out to the Bird Bath. It's going to be a good one. They've been a good program that last couple of years. They're off to a great start, catching some eyes of the national outlets, and it should be an exciting series. So for now, thanks for listening, and birds up.